Hey, good afternoon to you. 407 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up this hour, the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, joins us at 4:30. And then at 5 o'clock, we talk architecture and whether or not we can make America beautiful again with Justin Shubow. He'll discuss that with us coming up at 5. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Yeah, Los Angeles may have huge problems with fires right now, but they have no shortage of proud LGBTQ leadership to lead the way.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
The assistant fire chief in Los Angeles, Christine Larson, saying, I'm not going to save your husband because, one, I can't lift him, and two, more importantly, it's his own fault that he's in a fire. I'm sorry. Should I laugh at this? I know there's a lot of chaos going on in California, but this is insanity. Joining us now to discuss, David Strom, associate editor over at Hot Air. David, good to have you back with us, sir.
Well, it's always fun, and I understand we're going to be doing this regularly now.
Yeah, I hope so. We love having you on the show, and it's always good to chat with you. Man, I'm looking at all of this, David, and going, this is you couldn't write this. I mean, the Babylon Bee could not assemble a more insane collection of left-wing characters like this. Like the entire response in Los Angeles, the entire emergency preparedness infrastructure looks like it was dreamed up in the UC Berkeley faculty lounge. Like, how in the world did we get this?
Well, I mean, these are the wages of left-wing ideology. And, you know, people like you and me keep talking about it. And, you know, average Americans just cannot get their mind around, and I understand this, can't get their mind around the idea that there is so toxic an ideology out there that the adherents of it who are in power are willing to sacrifice your life, your community, your neighbors, your home in order to, you know, give jobs to, you know, people who are higher up on the intersectional ladder than you. I mean, it really sort of boils down to that, you know, you've got the sort of ordinary American proletariat out there who are just tools for the people at the top of the, you know, ideological ladder. That's what we exist for. We are here to fund their utopian dreams, and their utopia is overturning you know, American middle-class culture and installing, you know, the DEI dream. And it really is DEI that's at the heart of all of this.
And it's interesting, you know, you read all of the biographies of all of the people who are involved. I mean, you can look at their salaries. Some of these guys, especially the woman I just played for you, she's making in the vicinity of $500,000 a year. In order to spread that claptrap and say that as a firefighter, she won't respond to your husband's need as the house is burning down. But in their biographies, the most important thing about each of the people here is that they're, quote, diverse, or that they're proud members of the LGBTQ community, or the first woman to do this. I've noticed that the core competencies of firefighting aren't even mentioned.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, even in a world where, you know, diversity just means trying to hire the best out of some class of people, at the end of the day, you are excluding, you know, by far the largest part of the potential employee pool, so that, you know, even in its most benign sense, whether, you know, it's sort of old style affirmative action or whatever you want to call it, you are going to get a system that inevitably over time becomes less and less competent because you're not even trying to hire based upon the supposed goal of that job. In this case, firefighting. I mean, it's just not in the repertoire.
So you wrote for Hot Air this week about the woman who, again, the local media in L.A. describe her as a, quote, proud member of the LGBTQ community. She's the fire chief, Kristen Crowley. There's a magazine called Pride Magazine that wrote about her, and I marvel at the way that they write about her. They kind of say that that she's qualified, at least in part, because she's a queer woman who fits the stereotype of a lesbian who never leaves the house without a Leatherman multi-tool and carabiners. But I wasn't aware of this particular stereotype, but again, I still don't know what a multi-tool in her pocket has to do whether or not she's good at fighting fires.
Well, the best thing about that particular article is, and it came out yesterday, the fires are 0% contained, but the headline was, she's getting it done. She proves that lesbians can get the job done. And the job, it turns out, when you read that article, is being a lesbian at the top. And, it doesn't actually, I mean, she could be at the top of anything, and she's getting it done because the whole point is representing lesbians or members of the queer community or whatever group you want to say. Yeah. That's all that matters.
Baghdad Bob really missed out on a redemption story, don't you think? He should have come out and been like, look, I'm trans. It wouldn't have mattered that the tanks were barreling towards Baghdad behind him. He's like, nope, everything's fine. The Americans aren't here. He's trans. He's getting it done.
Yes. No, I mean, it really, and this gets to the heart of, all of this is tied to critical theory, and we don't have time to get into all the details, but critical theory at the end of the day is the belief that reality is shaped by narratives, by words, by, it's all in the mind. And so if you say it, it's true. And so, which is why, everybody goes nuts if you call a trans woman a man, and they say you're committing genocide. You're saying they don't exist. And it's like, no, that person exists. They're just a man.
Yeah.
But from their point of view, denying what they say is denying reality itself.
Well, it's also playing God.
Reality.
It's also playing God because in the beginning there was the Word, right? And the core concept of God is that He speaks truths into existence, and that's what the left thinks that they're doing here. They want to wield a power that does not belong to them.
That actually is precisely right, and it's sort of been the project ever since Nietzsche and Dostoevsky said God is dead. They weren't saying that as a good thing, but the fundamental truth is once you take God out of the equation, reality itself begins to crumble, at least in the minds of people who think in that direction. And so it's a very fundamental, sickness, I think, at the end of the day.
Yes.
They need to recreate meaning themselves because they find no meaning in reality. So
Los Angeles is a very unfortunate but practical case study in how this leads to human suffering, clearly. And, there's been quite a bit of debate on the extent to which L.A. cut its fire budget, but no matter where you get your news, there's no challenging the fact that the fire chief that we were just mentioning, Kristen Crowley, was complaining about those budget cuts to the mayor, Karen Bass, of L.A. just last month, December, in a very well-publicized letter. And now my colleagues over at the Daily Caller, they pulled together some of the where did L.A. actually spend its money, which I've been curious about. And here's the headline on that. Gay choirs, trans cafes, and social justice art is what L.A. spent money on while it was cutting its fire budget. The city of Los Angeles cut funding for its fire department and allocated thousands of dollars to various progressive programs, including a midnight stroll transgender cafe and a gay men's chorus. So I guess, this goes back to kind of an old Bidenism, David Strom, which is show me your budget and I'll show you your priorities.
Oh, that's exactly right. And these really are the things that matter. I mean, the city exists, in their mind as just sort of a resource that they can use to create their utopia. And you have to understand that when they added the Q in LGBTQ, Q means queer, and queer means anti-bourgeois, anti-capitalism, even single-family homes. I mean, I don't know whether you've seen, but the governor, Gavin Newsom, is already negotiating with developers to rezone these fire-ravaged areas to create essentially a little 15-minute city there. They're going to displace the people who live there and put in, their little utopia of, high-density housing. Wow. And, I mean, it's really remarkable. I mean,
it's very callous
already. Yeah, it's being seen as an opportunity to remake LA even more.
Yes, it's the Rahm Emanuel school. It's the Rahm Emanuel school. Yes. Never let a crisis go to waste. And so I guess I'm of mixed feelings about this. I feel awful for the people whose lives are being upended, and then insult to injury is coming in the form of what Gavin Newsom and company want to do to these people. But simultaneously, these are the very people who voted for Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass.
Yes, although I think we underestimate the power of the employees unions, government employees. They probably make up something like 35 to 40% of all the voters. And so it only takes a fraction of non-government, employees and their allies. Don't forget, you've got the teachers union, all of these people, they're always going to vote for the most left-wing Democrat. And so even if you have 40% of the city who doesn't want this, they're just outvoted by this enormous, totally reliable voting bloc. So I keep on reminding myself that the middle class doesn't actually vote for this most of the time. It's just that they have so little political power because you only need 50 plus 1%, although you usually get like 60. But we underestimate the fact that when government grows itself, it's also growing its political constituency.
But the one thing I will say is it seems like a lot of the people in this particular disaster are not mere middle class trying to scrape by paycheck voters. I mean, you've got Malibu, you've got the Pacific Palisades. This is some of the most elite members of our society, many of whom are very loyal Democrats and in fact probably know Gavin Newsom personally. This is the result of all of that uncritical support.
Well, you're right about that, and I'm probably soft pedaling the fact that most of the people who are getting impacted by this are in fact pretty liberal voters. But I do think it's important for conservatives to go into these cities and try to recruit the middle class voters there. And we can't write them off because we could probably get 45% instead of 25% if we ask for those votes. So I'm being a little strategic, I'll admit it.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is an important moment. Offer an alternative for sure. I'm with you 100%. Hey, David Strom, always so nice to talk to you. Thank you for joining us, sir. So interestingly, just got done speaking with David Strom, and the new video has just come out of the LA fire chief. This is the woman, again, who is construed as the proud member of the LGBTQ community, Kristen Crowley. She just made statements that the city of Los Angeles has failed her and the fire department. Oh, this is not going well for them.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say justifiably what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community.
Did they fail you?
That is our job, and I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, this is what a disaster, all of this. And of course, add that now to the video of Gavin Newsom being confronted by a woman yesterday on the street in California, in Los Angeles, who says, what are you going to do for us? He says, I'm literally talking to the president of the United States right now. And she said, well, let me talk to him too. Put him on speakerphone. I want to hear it. And he goes, I'm trying to reach him. I don't have cell service. What do you mean you're literally talking to him then? So you just lied to the woman. And then Karen Bass, arriving back in Los Angeles on that flight from Ghana. She was not in the country, of course. She was out celebrating the inauguration of some other country's president. She arrives back and she's confronted by an Irish Sky News reporter. Not any American reporters, no. An Irish Sky News reporter gets into her face and says, hey, any shame whatsoever? As she stares off into the distance. She acts like he doesn't exist, probably because he's an immigrant, and that's her view on him. He's not human. Despicable. Absolutely despicable. And I hope all of that comes back to haunt everybody involved here. They deserve it. The governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, will be with us coming up in just a moment. He was with President Trump last night in Maralago. We'll ask him about that and some snow this weekend. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up 5 o'clock, we talk Make America Beautiful Again. Can we fix the nation's architecture, especially some of those government buildings? Justin Shubo has a lot of thoughts on that. He'll join us coming up at 5 o'clock, and you can talk to us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Last night, President Trump at Mar-a-Lago assembling some of the nation's governors together, gathering to chat with them. What did they discuss? Well, let's ask one of the people who was in attendance. The governor of Virginia is with us now, Glenn Youngkin. Sir, always nice to have you back on the show.
Hey, Vince, great to be with you, and it was a real honor to be with President Trump last night in Mar-a-Lago. 22 governors came together, and he was gracious, gave us all a very detailed brief in what he's expecting to do immediately. And let me tell you, this guy's going to work. Mm-hmm. And that's what America voted him to do, is to go to work. And so, day one, he's going to finish his address, take his oath, and he's going to go right behind him into the Capitol and start signing executive orders. And it's going to be very exciting to see America moving again. And I have to say, I was particularly excited that closing the border and getting the border security straightened out is top of the agenda. Mm-hmm. National security. And dealing with these drones, I mean, come on, let's be serious. They have been flying over our secure airspace, over our classified assets, and we have been trying to do everything in our power in order to mitigate this. And the federal government hadn't done anything, and I've been wholly dissatisfied with their response. And I think this new administration is going to go to work, and we're going to figure out who this is and how we stop it. And finally, he is going to go to work to make sure that America's economy is strong. And it's going to be awesome to have a tailwind in Virginia. I mean, we have been rocking and rolling in the Commonwealth for the last 3 years, but we've been doing it with headwinds coming out of Washington. And I'm excited to see what we can do when we have tailwinds. Yeah,
it'll be a big deal. On this issue of drones, how bad has it been in the Commonwealth as are these drones that are flying over these restricted areas? What kind of problem have you been facing?
Well, this has been going on for 2 years, and of course the drone incursions have been publicly disclosed over Langley Air Force Base. They've gone over Little Creek and Dam Neck, where our SEAL teams are. They have been surveilling Newport News Shipbuilding, where of course all of our submarines and aircraft carriers are built, and Naval Station Norfolk. And so, I mean, these are some of our most classified, important areas in the nation. And of course, every time that I have really pressed, and I've even taken a full briefing, I've just come away totally dissatisfied that there are no answers. And at the end of the day, these drones flying over these secure assets, not to mention our critical infrastructure, are causing problems. And we need to know who they are and how we mitigate it. And I think President Trump's going to get at this right out of the box.
What did he say, if you can share anything, even the sentiment with us about that issue? It sounds to me like he's ready to go after it.
Yeah, he basically said that it was unacceptable for there to be no clarity on what's going on, and that it would be on the 21st when he would get to work. He said, you got to give me a chance to get inaugurated, but we're going to go to work right out of the box. I've had a chance to talk to some of the folks who will be stepping into his National Security Advisory team, and they are equally focused on this. At the end of the day, Virginia is home to so many of the most important defense and intelligence and national security assets. As I said, Naval Station Norfolk's the largest naval base in the world, Marine Corps base Quantico, the Pentagon, all of our intelligence community, not to mention some of the home to so many of the SEAL teams is in Virginia. And so we have got to work with the federal government in order to make sure these facilities are secure and safe, and that when there is the repeated incursion from drones in these secure airspace, it not only endangers our national security, but it also puts our localities at risk.
Governor Youngkin, getting all these governors together and the President of the United States, that's a lot of chief executives in one room. And I have to imagine that part of the conversation was about what we're seeing in California right now. Did you discuss among the other governors and the president just the disaster that's taking place there and what it takes to be a governor and handle situations like that?
Yeah, it's just awful. I mean, you cannot watch what's going on in California, and particularly the greater Los Angeles, without, first of all, just dropping to your knees and saying, Lord, what is this? This has been awful. My heart just absolutely breaks for all of these people who have lost their homes and their livelihoods. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people being evacuated. And at the end of the day, listen, they got their hands full. I don't understand the situations with fire hydrants not having water. I don't understand that. Listen, we've got to prepare for emergencies, and it's one of the top responsibilities for governors. And we've done, I believe, a very good job in Virginia. We had to deal with Hurricane Helene back in late September. We pre-positioned assets. We put all kinds of Army and National Guardsmen in place. We had rescue teams, state police, generators, all ready to go, and reacted. And then even with the snow this week, we pre-positioned 9,000 pieces of road equipment in advance of the snowstorm this past week. And this is what we've got to do. You plan, you prepare, and then you have to execute. And that's, I think, one of the top jobs that we're elected to do. I will say, well, I've got folks on the line, we've got another snowstorm coming this week. My state of emergency that I declared last weekend is still in effect. And we are working to make sure that the roads are pre-treated. If you drive around, you'll see the roads are all white. That's pre-treatment. To make sure that the snow doesn't stick and freeze, but in fact melts. And we're going to make sure that we're, once again, keeping Virginians safe. I ask folks, please stay off the roads tonight and tomorrow. I know that folks may have places to go, but it's Saturday, and we're going to have plow trucks on the road getting things cleaned up. Stay off the road so that we can get everything cleaned up quickly and get everybody back to their normal lives. The weather should warm up tomorrow. It'll freeze again overnight on Saturday night, so we'll have ice patches. And, of course, the Northern Virginia area is not going to get quite as much snow as we got earlier in the week, but we still expect anywhere between 1 and 3 inches, and that can cause a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and usually it's 1 or 2 big snows that we get in any given year, and you just always have to be ready for these things. The one that we had earlier this week, are there things that you detected and kind of work out the kinks from it as you head into, say, this weekend's snow?
I felt like we had really good preparation, and at the heart of it was the pre-positioning and pre-treating of all the roads with our VDOT equipment. And as people drove around, I was getting all kinds of texts, hey, there's tow trucks everywhere. And that's big job one, so we can get our interstates scraped off along with all of our primary roads and then moved to secondary roads. I mean, we got a lot of snow up here earlier this week.
Yeah.
Second of all is to make sure that power stays on. And once again, we work with Dominion primarily in this area, but Appalachian Power in the southwestern part of the state and a lot of the cooperatives to get crews ready. And they did exactly that. We had 120,000 overall customer outages in Virginia. And as of this morning, we had just about everybody. I think about 1,000 folks were still out this morning. But that's a top priority. And then, of course, the city of Richmond just had just a horrific week with their water treatment plant, where that plant went down Monday morning. We found out about it late in the day on Monday and immediately went to work. All the pressure got back up yesterday, and they're still testing. They're on a boiled water advisory. Listen, some of these water systems, the cities really struggled when the power went down, and we brought all kinds of state resources in order to help them get through that. So, yeah, some of the things folks might not have been quite fully prepared for. We have been unleashing the full cadre of state resources in order to support everybody around the state. And we got to get through these storms. And that's one of the things that I'm really committed to make sure that Virginians are safe.
The Virginia Mercury reports today that Richmond is on track to lift its boil water advisory by tomorrow. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, I heard the same thing from the mayor this morning. We've been in close contact with them since, as I said, Monday afternoon when they informed us that this had happened on Monday morning. And we have given them all kinds of technical support, operating support, brought in literally dozens of big water tankers from all over the state. We've had tremendous movement of pallets of water. I want to thank all the corporate partners that also doubled down. We've had, literally thousands of pallets of water brought in. And so I want to thank everybody for that. This is just an all-hand-decks moment. And so the mayor does say that tomorrow morning they expect the boil water advisory to be lifted. Mm-hmm. Our team from the Virginia Department of Health and the Office of Drinking Water has gone resident in this water treatment plant in order to provide them all the possible support we can. And so we're hopeful that this gets lifted tomorrow.
Governor Youngkin, finally, the inauguration now just 10 days away. Will we see you in attendance there?
Yeah, I'm going to attend. I'm excited. Listen, there is a great sense of anticipation and excitement for President Trump and the entire administration coming in. I mean, listen, the America gave him an overwhelming mandate. And as we see the majority in the Senate and now the majority in the House with the Speaker elected this past week, and President Trump's agenda, as I was able to hear last night, is going to be aggressive and swift. And that's what Americans want. And so I'm very excited about the inauguration this weekend. And I think it's time for America to get moving again. And it's going to be exciting to see. As I said, in the Commonwealth, we have really been cooking the last 3 years. Virginia is as strong as it's ever been. Record job numbers, record corporate investments. And we've been doing all this with headwinds coming out of Washington. So I'm very excited about having some tailwinds for a change.
All right. Governor Glenn Youngkin of the Commonwealth of Virginia, sir, thank you very much for joining us, telling us about what happened at Maralago and getting ready for this snowstorm. Appreciate you being with us today.
Yeah, Vince, thank you. God bless you. And everybody stay safe. Stay home tomorrow for me, and we'll get this snow cleaned up for you.
Love it. Thank you, Governor. There he is, Governor Glenn Youngkin of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Again, last night with all of those other Republican governors and President Trump. You heard Governor Youngkin talking about what a disaster, of course, it is in California. And some of the public conversation that the governors had on this subject last night was captured on camera as Ron DeSantis was talking to some of the reporters there and saying, just look at the way Gavin Newsom is being judged by the media, given such a wide berth. Just imagine if he were a Republican.
President-elect or a president to be criticizing. Is it appropriate for people in your industry to try to create division and to try to create narratives anytime these things happen? Now, you're not as interested in doing that because Newsom is a D. If Newsom was a Republican, you guys would you would have him nailed to the wall for what they're doing over there. And I know we've dealt with it. We just assume in Florida, anytime something happens, it's going to be politicized by the media. So you guys sitting in judgment of Donald Trump, I mean, excuse me, I think your track record of politicizing these things is very, very bad.
Okay, last question.
Newsom should
resign and that the wildfires are all his fault. So do you agree with those comments?
I remember when we had the Surfside Tower collapse, I had people from the Washington Post trying to blame me for it immediately without having any facts or anything. Oh, he didn't declare a state of emergency. First of all, state of emergency doesn't mean you can't respond. It's all that. Excuse me?
Biden did it. I think that's what she said.
Well, but what I'm telling you is you guys are trying to make an issue of it when I have watched from this seat. In fact, when I got elected governor, I was meeting with some of the other Republican governors, and what they would say is, hey, if you have a natural disaster, just know media's coming at you, they're going to do it. It's not the same. That mayor of L.A., if that were a Republican mayor, I could only imagine what that would do. I mean, you know the fires are at high risk, and you try to go to Africa or wherever she was to go on some type of voyage. You should have been there preparing and doing that, and yet I don't see a lot of heat being directed in that thing. And so, you know, I'd like to see some balance on how this is done. You could criticize the president-elect, but I think you also have to hold these other people accountable, and I have not seen that.
No, he hasn't. And in fact, you know, on that point about Karen Bass being a Democrat, and what if this were a Republican? How would this be handled? It is so amazing. If you go back to Texas, I think this was their ice problem that they had, and they lost power. Back in 2021, Karen Bass, February 19th of that year, tweeted the following, quote, Ted Cruz fleeing Texas in the middle of a deadly crisis is a part of a larger pattern of the GOP abandoning folks in crisis. We need to build a movement to kick them all out. Wow. That's amazing, considering she fled to Ghana as they were under some of the most punishing possible conditions in California, wildfire season. And she said, and all these Santa Ana winds coming in and making everything so much worse. She decided it was then she was going to head to Ghana. She's still not going to Trump's inauguration, by the way. But other presidents in other countries shall surely go. A junket at someone else's expense? Definitely. That's what Karen Bass is into. We were just talking to Governor Glenn Youngkin about visiting Maralago. Not the only dignitary to visit Maralago recently and in the days ahead. Do you see Democrat Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman is headed off to Mar-a-Lago to visit with President Trump, of course, outraging the left. What's going on? Obama, kind of chumming it up with President Trump the other day at Jimmy Carter's funeral. Now, John Fetterman making the pilgrimage to Mar-a-Lago. And Fetterman supporting the Laken Riley Act, which got pushed ahead in the Senate yesterday by a pretty wide margin. I think a lot of these Democrats in the Senate watched what happened to their House colleagues as they all simultaneously stepped on a rake that hit them in the face. And they said, I'd like to avoid that. I think it was 9 Democrats, though, in the Senate, still holding tight to the rake stepping exercise. But John Fetterman was a co-sponsor of that Laken Riley Act. And now he's visiting with President Trump. He was asked about it yesterday, and here's what he said.
Hey, Senator. Yeah. Can we ask you what you hope to get out of your visit to Mar-a-Lago to talk to Donald Trump?
Well, what are we talking about here? Is there some news?
There's some news. We hear that you're going to be heading down to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yes, I've heard that, yeah.
What will you be discussing with the president?
Well, yeah, I demand that I need to be made Pope of Greenland.
Do you have the resume to be Pope?
I'm having a conversation like he's the president, is going to be. So, I am not the senator for just Democrats in Pennsylvania. I'm everyone's senator in Pennsylvania. And so it's just having a conversation.
I love the start of the question. What do you think you're even going to get out of talking to him? Ugh. And Fetterman, his attitude, which is the appropriate one to take, is one of mockery first. It's like, oh, I'm going to ask him to become the Pope of Greenland. That's my plan. But then says the correct thing as well, which is I'm not just a senator for Democrats. I'm a senator for the people of Pennsylvania. So Fetterman doing the right thing. It's so funny. Like, Fetterman, I know a lot of people have made the reference that, like, as he's recovering his brain function, he's becoming more conservative. But this is the most obvious thing to me. It always has been. These Democrats are so stupid, the ones who decided just to go to war with Trump at all costs. They could try a different tact. They could just talk to him. They could figure out whether or not, as as Kamala Harris might say, that they share any space on a Venn diagram. Is there anywhere we agree that we can move things forward a little bit here? So John Fetterman, apparently the wisest Democrat senator. I still can't believe the world we live in with each passing day. Coming up, Justin Shubo is going to join us as, is it possible to not just heal America, but make it look more pretty? We'll talk about the architecture and whether or not President Trump is going to be able to fix that up as well. That's ahead.